I think one of the most terrifying things about the ocean is that we only know so little about everything that goes on down there. Surely a lot of people have gotten the chance to dive into the mysterious depths and spot some pretty cool stuff. But still, the ocean is so big, and I doubt that any human in history would ever be able to fully explore it and know every single thing about it. However, there are quite a few things we know about the ocean, and some of those things are quite shocking. Spiders and crabs. How many of you are a fan of any of these animals? I'm sure lots of you are afraid of spiders, and many of you are not so fond of crabs. But imagine a Japanese spider crab. If you don't like spiders or crabs, then you probably won't want to run into this animal, especially since it's one of the biggest creatures in the ocean. They can be as big as 3 meters wide or even a bit longer, and they belong to the family of arthropods, a family of animals that has more than 5 million members, including spiders, centipedes, crabs, and lots of other animals. Without a doubt, the Japanese spider crab is the largest one of them all, that we know of yet. Who knows, maybe there are bigger arthropods that we haven't discovered yet. Now, even though this animal is big, it should never be a reason for you to feel threatened by it. Their legs are so fragile, and most of the spider crab loses at least one of those legs during the lifetime. Here's a sea monster that you've seen before, and you'll probably keep seeing it every time we talk about monsters in the ocean: the great white shark. These massive sharks are long and heavy, and they can be as long as 7 meters, which is roughly about 3 times the size of an average human. They can also weigh about as much as 1,100 kilos. And of course, this poor beast has a lot of bad reputation thanks to its depiction in Hollywood films, starting with the good old Jaws. The great white shark is indeed dangerous, and it can cause severe damage to humans, but you're more likely to get attacked by other animals before you get attacked by a great white shark. In fact, there are only about 5 white shark-related deaths reported every year, in the whole world. Due to its big size and eating habits, the great white shark is an apex predator, which means that there's little to no predators chasing after it. Except for another sea monster that I'm about to reveal with, picture yourself in the best exotic snorkeling trip ever. Your head is underwater, admiring the magnificent ocean, when suddenly the ground begins to move. You might think it's your imagination, but ho, it's not. It's a giant manta ray moving underneath you. This is exactly what happens to a lot of people when they encounter this creature, camouflaged with the sand at the bottom of the ocean. They are so big that their large pectoral fins, which are their longest side, can be as big as 30 feet wide, which is the equivalent to 4.5 times the height of Michael Jordan, the legendary basketball star. I would be scared to swim by an animal this big, but they're probably more scared of us than we are of them. And when in danger, they can swim as fast as 24 kilometers per hour, which is pretty slow compared to the way we drive cars, but fast in terms of underwater velocity. For that reason, the giant manta ray doesn't have a lot of predators. It can easily swim away as soon as danger comes up. Of course, the blue whale is here. As long as we talk about big animals, the blue whale will always be on the top of the list. There's no larger animal in existence, and we seriously hope things stay that way. Because honestly, if there are larger animals down there, then I seriously don't want to get near the bottom of the ocean. The blue whale is so big that its heart is as heavy as a car, and its tongue is as heavy as an elephant. I mean, elephants are some of the largest animals on land, so that's even crazier. And it seems like mother whales encourage growth at a very early age, since they feed about 6,000 liters of milk to their calves on a daily basis. Once they grow old, they feed from tiny plankton and krill through the filters in their system. The ocean sunfish, also known as mola mola, is not only big, but it's also one of the heaviest bony fish in the world. They can be slightly longer than 3 meters and weigh more than 2,000 kilos. Can you just imagine trying to fish one of these out of the water? It sounds like it would take a ton of work, and your average fishing pole would likely not be enough to get your hands on this bony fish. You can find the mola mola near the coast of countries like Chile, New Zealand, and South Africa. In places like Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, a dish of mola mola is considered a delicacy. And I can totally see that since, after all, it's not just a regular bony fish. Unfortunately, the mola mola is a vulnerable species, meaning that it could become endangered if the circumstances for its survival and reproduction don't improve. For that reason, some countries around the world have put up restrictions against the hunt of this large creature. Hopefully things improve for this big but harmless fish. After all, it's not a threat to us humans, even though its massive size could easily scare us away. We saw one of the heaviest bony fish ever. Now, do you want to see one of the longest ones? Meet the giant oarfish. This serpent-like bony fish can be longer than 17 meters long. That's about 10 times larger than the height of an average human. Due to its long shape, when you see the oarfish, you'll probably think it's a snake and not a bony fish. Some people also call it a ribbon fish or the king of herrings. It is commonly found in the tropics, but it's also believed to be the kind of fish that migrates for long distances in search of food. Sometimes they swim on their dorsal fins and sometimes they swim vertically. Now, even though this creature is bigger than us, it doesn't have the tools to prey on us. Instead, the giant oarfish feeds from small things like krill, small fish, and also squid. In different mythologies, there are reported sightings of the mythical sea serpents, and experts believe that the animals they were referring to was in fact the giant oarfish. Some people also called it the earthquake fish because they claim that this fish appears before and after an earthquake happens. We can't have the great white shark without its main natural threat, the killer whale. Also known as the orca, this is by far one of the largest and most powerful animals in the whole world. This black and white mammal is in the same oceanic family as dolphins, which includes different toothed whales. Of course, the orca is the biggest of them all, and they're the apex predators since there's no natural predators chasing after them. They are sometimes called the wolves of the sea since they hunt in packs just like wolves do. They prey on animals like squid, seals, rays, dolphins, and sea lions. The orcas usually disable their prey before they eat it, in order to avoid getting injured. When it comes to humans, orcas do not usually attack us while in the wild. However, it's an entirely different story when it comes to captive killer whales. Just take a look at what happened in SeaWorld San Diego, and you'll know what these animals are capable of doing to us. The orca, identified as Tilikum, killed its longtime friend and trainer. Since the incident, sea-themed attraction parks started taking action against keeping these beasts in captivity. They're slowly changing the way they do their shows, and eventually they don't want to have any killer whales at all. I'm not sure if these centers meant good when they first brought in the orcas, but it seems like these animals prefer to stay in the wild, where they can be as free as they want. Also known as the finback whale, this beast is considered the second largest animal in the world today. The body of this whale is long and slender, and there are two famous subspecies of this animal. One of them lives in the North Atlantic, and the other one is in the Southern Hemisphere. But honestly, you can expect to find it in any ocean around the world, in tropical and polar waters. Unfortunately, just like many large whales, the fin whale has been hunted throughout history, and today it is an endangered species, which is very unfortunate considering that this whale doesn't pose a major threat to us, except for those shipwrecks that involved a collision with a fin whale. Surprisingly, there is one known natural predator to this beast, the killer whale. Even though the fin whale is bigger, the killer whale has the tools to attack this massive animal. There have been at least 20 accounts in which killer whales were seen attacking harmless but massive fin whales. One of these reports claims that there were 16 killer whales preying on a single fin whale. It sounds like things are pretty crazy in the underwater world, but I can't come to one conclusion. Killer whales are jerks. We all know the blue whale is the largest sea monster in existence. However, back in 2018, a group of paleontologists in England revealed their findings of fossils of a sea monster that could easily be larger than the blue whale. This animal had the shape of a dolphin, and the fossils reveal it was a carnivore. However, this animal lived in the dinosaur time. The study of these fossils is relatively new, but it's been useful for scientists to understand the reason why whales today have gotten so big. Just imagine if they find out that the ichthyosaur is still alive. With most of our blue planet covered by water, it's a little wonder that centuries ago, the oceans were believed to hide mysterious creatures including sea serpents and mermaids. Merfolk, that is, mermaids and mermen, many children are perhaps most familiar with the Disney version of The Little Mermaid, a somewhat sanitized version of a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale first published in 1837. In the original tale, saying that they are very different is quite the understatement. In folklore, mermaids were often associated with misfortune and death, luring errant. In 1967, British Columbia became a hub of mermaid excitement when a mermaid was spotted lounging on the shore of Main Island. The creature was seen in the early evening by passengers on ferries close to the west entrance to Active Pass. The Daily Colonist reported on the sightings the next day, and included a photograph that it said had been taken by George Harrison of Sioux City, Iowa. The spotted creature looked like your prototypical mermaid. Long, flowing silver blonde hair, upper torso of a woman, lower body of a fish, etc., etc. Spectators must have seen it very clearly indeed, with one even saying that it had dimples on its cheeks. The same witness also said that the mermaid seemed to enjoy the wake of the ferry washing over her. Funnily enough, he also declined to have his name put on the report, fearing that his boss would think him crazy. Several witnesses also said the mermaid had a large fish, apparently coho salmon, and once swore she had taken a bite out of it. A few days later, the colonists cranked it up a notch, reporting that a $25,000 reward would be offered for the Dimpled Mermaid of Active Pass. The offer was made by Charles White of the Undersea Gardens, who added that a panel of competent marine biologists would have to confirm that the mermaid was the real thing. Although the report is quite unclear about it, it actually looks like White was thinking of employing the mermaid, probably to work as an attraction in the Undersea Gardens. In the report, White was saying that he would make her an offer she couldn't refuse, which includes a substantial salary, room and board, and the clincher, and I quote, a supply of those special combs that mermaids use. The Dimpled Mermaid was seen again about a week later at nearby Cordova Bay. It was never seen since, probably afraid of being used as a sideshow attraction, no matter how many combs she was offered. Seriously though, combs? Up your game, man. Scotland has countless mysteries and legends, with mermaids taking a place in their folklore. However, in 1830, a mermaid was apparently seen and subsequently killed by the people of Benbecula. According to the story, people were busy cutting seaweed at Sagir na Ducat near Grimnes on the west coast of the island of Benbecula. One woman spotted a creature several yards out in the water. The creature looked like a woman in miniature. Alarmed, she called the others working on the shore who also saw this strange sight. Men went into the water to try to catch the creature, but she evaded them. A boy aimed a rock at her, which struck her on the back, and she cried out in pain and disappeared beneath the waves. A few days later, a creature was washed up dead on the beach at Cole Bay near the township of Nunton, which lies a few miles north of this spot. The creature was said to have the upper shape of a well-developed woman, but was around the size of a 4-year-old girl. She had long, dark, glossy hair and white skin. However, her lower half was described as being like a salmon, but without the scales. The local sheriff was called. Upon seeing the creature, he called for a shroud and coffin to be brought to the beach, and the creature was later put into this and buried in the nearby churchyard. It was said that the funeral for this creature was one of the largest attended on the island. It was carried out like any proper Christian burial. No grave marker related to the incident can be seen at the churchyard, and others have said that the creature was buried near the dunes and not in the churchyard at all. In fact, a recent survey of a large stone near the south end of the bay was carried out, suspecting that this may indeed be the resting place of the mermaid, but this was inconclusive. Water is very important in African cultural beliefs and is often an integral part of creation narratives. Traditional beliefs in water spirits may also play a role in discouraging some swimmers. Water spirits exist in traditional African religions that can embody both good and evil. Water spirits in particular were believed to exist and take the form of snakes or mermaids, or a combination of both. One spirit in particular is a mermaid often referred to as Mami Wata or Mambu Muntu, who exists in many African traditional beliefs. She is a deity known to cause both negative and positive events in lives. Many people continue to pay homage to this deity, and mermaid sightings continue to be reported. In 2012, construction crews in Zimbabwe were scared away from their work on Gokwe and Osborne dams by an angry Mamba Muntu. The creatures were harassing workers as they attempted to complete construction on the dams. The local workers, raised in an area of folklore and myth, believed the appearance of the Mamba Muntu to be a bad omen and refused to finish construction on the dam. The local council, in an attempt to pursue the continued construction of the dams, hired white workers to finish the job. This was in an attempt to hire persons not engulfed in the legend and popularity of the Mambu Muntu sightings. However, these workers fled the construction site as well, and they vowed never to return due to the rage and harassment of the Zimbabwe River Mermaid. Mer beings have been present in folklore throughout the world since practically as long as folklore has been around. And yet, as much as the idea of half-human, half-fish beings may sound like mere flights of fancy, there are numerous reports of real-life sightings and encounters with strange mer beings from all over the world. During World War II, amidst the fighting that was quickly flaming across the Pacific, there is an interesting case that was reported by Japanese soldiers from the K Islands of Indonesia in 1943. The K Islands, also known as the Kai Islands, are located in the southeastern part of the Molucca Islands of Indonesia. It was in this gorgeous island paradise of postcard-perfect, pristine white sand beaches that a most peculiar and mysterious case of real mer beings occurred. In 1943, Japanese soldiers stationed with a surveillance team on a small remote island within the K Island chain reported seeing strange creatures in the water that were said to have limbs and a face somewhat similar to a human, however had a mouth like a carp, filled with needle-like teeth. These bizarre creatures were described as typically being around 150 centimeters tall, and having pink or salmon-colored skin, as well as prominent spines or spikes of some sort on their heads or even their necks and shoulders. These strange beasts were not really keeping with the image of what a mermaid should look like at all. Unlike the more classical mermaids, these mer-beings were not described as attractive maidens, and did not have holy fish tails. Rather, they possessed 2 long arms and 2 prominent frog-like legs, both of which ended in wicked talons. These creatures were called the orangutan by the locals. Stories suggest that these creatures are peaceful and would rather stay away from land dwellers as much as possible. But just seeing one of these weird and terrifying creatures would be enough to scare even a seasoned soldier. Sea stars are lovely creatures. We see them all the time on Instagram posts from people who take trips to the beach. Although honestly, you shouldn't even touch them, please leave them alone. And I can actually see how many people find them attractive. These living creatures shaped like stars are truly unique. But have you seen the biggest one of them all? That would be the giant sea star, and you can find it on rocky shores along the western coast of North America. From Southern California to British Columbia, you can spot these creatures near the shallow waters. They can be as big as 2 feet long. Their colors can also be any shade from brown to red, and sometimes even purple. Since they're so big, there are not many animals out there preying on them. However, they do still have their predators, that being sea otters and seabirds, and sometimes there's also snails who feed on their larvae. The giant sea star gets their food by extending their stomach so they can fit them into tiny gaps. Pretty interesting, actually. The Caiman are mermaid-like creatures known from the folklore of some regions of South Africa, in which they are said to be malevolent beings resembling half-human and half-fish humanoids with glowing red eyes. They attempt to drown their victims. Obviously, this is all just mermaid mythology, right? Well, a report from 2008 suggests that there may be more than meets the eye to the Caiman story. On the 10th of January 2008 in the Surbrock area of the South African Western Cape, a group of friends were enjoying a barbecue on the banks of Buffelshoeks River when they reported seeing the Caiman, or Cayman. Really, I don't know how you pronounce it in this one. Local resident Daniel Cupido said he and a group of friends were relaxing next to the river when he heard something which sounded like someone bashing on a wall. He then walked toward the sound. At a nearby low-water bridge, he said he saw a figure like that of a white woman with long black hair thrashing about in the water. Thinking she was in trouble, he waded toward her to attempt a rescue, but said he stopped in his tracks when he noticed a reddish shine in her eyes. The sight sent shivers down his spine, but he found himself inexplicably pulled forward as if hypnotized. He somehow broke away from this trance and proceeded to call his son and nephew to help him. He then shouted to his friends to take a look as well. Which mermaid story scared you the most? Let us know in the comments section down below.